Sounds of Health will be live again at Hamden Fest on Saturday, June 14th at Hamden Town Center Park in Hamden, Connecticut. This will be the 20th annual Business and Community Expo with an artisan craft and civic fair, Friends of the Hamden Library book sale, Hamden Fest Half Marathon and 5K Road Fest, live music and entertainment, including us at Sounds of Health, and also a kids zone, sports zone, and food trucks. Please join us there, Saturday, June 14th. Thank you for listening to Sounds of Health. To help promote our podcast, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, where you can find us by searching for Sounds of Health, and also on YouTube, where you can find us by searching Sounds of Health Podcast. We appreciate your support.
Eventually, be in a place where I can have that perspective wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
So much fun to be having this conversation with Dan and have it be recorded.
Because you probably have this conversation all the time with Dan, but it's never recorded. Is
well,
that
not
why?
as often as I'd like,
Yeah?
personally.
Okay.
But time is always limited.
Of course. Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're happy to be capturing this right now. 'Cause Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sounds of Health, where every week we discover inspiring stories, meet incredible people, and share valuable resources to help you boost your physical, emotional, and financial well-being. I'm your host, Dave MacNiven, and today I am thrilled to welcome our guests, Dan Camenga, the Executive Director of Interfaith Volunteer Caregivers, who has actually a returning guest for Sounds of Health. You may have listened to his episode, and if you haven't yet, I suggest you go back and listen. And also, he's brought with him Kathleen Schomaker, the Executive Director of Gray is Green, an online gathering of older adult Americans aspiring to create a green legacy for the future. Kathleen, Dan, welcome to Sounds of Health.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
I'm really excited to have you both here and to learn all about Gray is Green and IVCG again. I think, the work that both of you are doing is absolutely incredible, and I think it's great that our listeners are going to learn a little bit more about all of it.
Well, thanks. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. And actually, what a gift it is to be here with my friend Kathleen, who's been just the inspiration for many years for me. So it's great to have this opportunity. Thanks, Dave.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, it's a real privilege for me. As Dan knows, we've been inspiring each other for many years. So thank you for letting me join this today.
A lot of love in this room today. That's great. So, Kathleen, we have spoken to Dan a couple of times. So our listeners have heard a little bit about how he got to where he is today. Mm-hmm. But I'd wonder if you'd like to spend a few minutes just telling us what your background is like and what brought you to the work you're doing with Gray is Green.
So the root of my story is that I was a teenage girl the first time they had a photo of Earth from space on the evening news, and I fell madly in love with the planet and have never recovered from that.
That's fantastic. I love that.
And then the next vivid memory is hearing the head of NOAA testify before Congress about climate change in something like 1986. And my toddler is toddling around the living room while I'm listening to this on the evening news, and I have an moment.
Really?
And say,
it hit you that hard?
It hit me very hard.
Yeah.
So I studied advanced, I took master's degrees in sociology to study social systems, and then I came to Yale and took a master's degree in ecology because my interest was the interface between how we organize ourselves as a species in this advanced, so-called advanced society we're in, and how that interacts with this wonderful natural world that actually is the life-sustaining part of our experience.
And was it that moment of that interview that brought you into that space, or were you already kind of heading in that direction?
I was really exploring that.
Yeah, you were. Okay.
On my own. Things like ecofeminism and deep ecology and just how it feels to walk through the woods and along the rivers and hike up some mountains and look at the sky and enjoy all of the species around me. That's part of the lived experience of joy that keeps me engaged.
Right. Okay. So that was things you were practicing in your personal life and you were going after in your professional life as well. Okay.
Yeah. And going out at night and following the phases of the moon. And
Right. Yeah.
there's just so much.
Just looking at the sky.
Just looking at the sky.
Yeah. That's great. It's something I've always enjoyed as well.
Yeah. So all of it, really. A few minutes, I'm giving you a little flavor. It's everything around.
Great. So then when you're out of school, what was the career? Where did you go? How'd you get started?
I taught college at an art school in Columbus, Ohio. I decided that I needed to bring the science into my experience. So that brought me to New Haven, Connecticut to take a master's degree at Yale.
Yeah.
And then I became interested in organizing programs that would engage people. So I did that at Yale. I was actually engaging the alumni to be in conversation with one another about what they're doing and share ideas. After that, I became the sustainability coordinator for the town of Hamden. And then at some point, it was time to kind of stop the day-to-day work life and become, not retired, I call it redeployed.
Fantastic. That's great.
And so Gray is Green fits into that very well. And I'm always looking for connections, and that took me to IVCG.
Yeah, so I was on the Gray is Green website, grayisgreen.org, and I was looking at your profile, and I liked the way that it was explained as this being your encore career.
Yeah.
So you just mentioned redeployed as well. I love that. I love both of those phrases, and I think it just touches on the fact that you're continuing to have an impact on your community and the world around you.
At a new pace, in a new frame of being, which I've been exploring for a couple decades, which I refer to as elderhood. I hear a lot of talk about senior citizens. I guess I'm one of those.
Yeah.
But I'm an aspiring and evolving elder to my own sensibilities.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in community on that work through another organization called the Elders Action Network. And elderhood is what comes after adulthood, when we need to lay down all those other responsibilities, accept the new pace of life. And there's a Harvard professor named Richard Keegan who talks about how our brains actually start to work differently with a broader focus that takes us beyond, even farther beyond our own egos, and to really embrace the love of the world that has fed us so bountifully for all the decades we've been alive. It's a real privilege to live, to be an elder.
Yeah, it definitely is. Not all of us get that opportunity.
Yes.
And I'm sure it comes with a new perspective.
Yes.
So that's really amazing. I want to ask you a little bit more about your position in Hamden as the sustainability coordinator. Mm-hmm. What did that entail?
Well, that's a lovely question because Connecticut proudly has a municipal certification program that was developed by some people that I know through my connections at the Yale School of Forestry and Environmental Studies, now called the Yale School of the Environment. And they modeled it on a New Jersey model, but municipalities take specific actions in 9 categories and accumulate points and then become certified as sustainable municipalities. And that includes things that involve natural areas, but it also includes community engagement and arts. It's a lot of, that's sustainablect.com or .org, I can't remember.
Okay.
But that's a very exciting program in Connecticut. And so my work there was really just going through and mapping out what is the plan for Hamden to get to certification.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's really amazing.
Yeah.
So I want to get Dan involved here because
Yes,
I see his
please.
head going back and forth.
Yes, please.
I just love to always be in conversation with Kathleen.
I bet,
When you're speaking, Kathleen, one of the things that certainly I'm thinking a lot about is a conversation we recently had, and it's about my aspiration to follow in the footsteps of our elders, right, and to try and achieve this sense of peace and perspective, right, that you talked about, this idea that you do gain, I think, over time, an increasing and accelerated appreciation, right? An accelerated appreciation for what's around us.
Yeah.
And I've observed that for a long time. And I've talked a little about, this with Kathleen. There is a sense that as we age, we become curious in terms of what is out there.
Right.
Right. We spend a lot of time indoors, right? But to go out of doors, I think, is a very important part of our experience as humans, and I think as we separate perhaps from the stresses of adulting, we can maybe rediscover some of the joy that we first started to have as young people.
Yeah,
uncovering new adventures, right? Having those hikes in the woods. One of the programs that IVCG has, I just want to add this to the table, is the Connecticut Garden Collaborative. And one of the reasons why we're so passionate about that is to really encourage people to discover and to engage with public garden space. Why? Because typically public garden space, unlike open space, and we're very good, quite frankly, about open space in New England. There's a good culture around open space, which is very healthy, right? Very good for the environment. But open space is sometimes inaccessible to those with a disability or limited mobility. And so as we age, those things might change, but that doesn't change our heart and our desire, right, to be in those spaces. So
right.
I think, to think about and to be more aware of our communities and to recognize the beauty that can come in cooperation between people, plants, and planet, right? It's to say, okay, there's something there that is important for us, right? And to share in that. So I appreciate this idea of aspiring, and I hope to eventually, be in a place where I can have that perspective wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
So much fun to be having this conversation with Dan and have it be recorded.
Because you probably have this conversation all the time with Dan, but it's never recorded. Is
well,
that
not
why?
as often as I'd like,
Yeah?
personally.
Okay.
But time is always limited.
Of course. Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're happy to be capturing this right now, because I do think a lot of what both of you are saying, it brings up so many concepts and ideas, and the importance of staying connected to your environment and your community has such an impact on your health, on your physical, mental, emotional health.
Yes.
And it's so important. Yes. I mean, I know I've had instances, I used to act, and when I started acting, I used to have a lot of anxiety about getting on stage. Oh. And I, through training, learned to use that anxiety. I learned to not fight it. But one of the things that I used to do was I would always get outside and I would just put my hand on a piece of earth, just put my hand, ground myself. And it would always put everything in perspective and give me a moment of feeling balanced so that I could really then harness that anxious energy.
That's beautiful.
That. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's so important for all of us to stay connected. How did the two of you first meet? How did this connection start?
It was the Land Trust. We served together on the Land Trust, Hamden Land and Conservation Trust, as board members. And I think I was, a little like overwhelmed. Here's this amazing person who was a real community leader, has been a community leader, and continues to be. And I was the new guy in town. I came to Connecticut just a few months after my oldest son was born, and I've always had a draw right to green space, and I'm like, well, I need to be in green space. I need to be contributing, and so I reached out, and thankfully the board was open to my service. But that was a fun time, a long time ago. Huh?
Yeah, how many years ago was that?
I think it goes back to 2009.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Long time connection.
And Dan, I cherish the memory of working on the gardens in my backyard
Yes,
with
yes,
you.
yes.
He was in the business of designing and installing gardens, and I said, "Okay, I can afford you, but I want to be your what is it called? Your helper.
Well, we were in community together in that work, and you were patient enough to allow me to say, listen, there's this shrub we had a little overgrown, but if we're patient, we can actually get it back into health.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
And so
we played in the dirt together.
That's fantastic. It's a great way to bond and learn about somebody.
It is.
Yeah. So I don't want to presume that all of our listeners of each episode listen to every episode. I hope they do. I hope they're going to go back and listen. So I do, in case people out there have not heard your episode,
Sure.
Why don't you spend just a little bit of time talking about your role with IVCG and what IVCG is?
Well, sure. Yeah. So IVCG, organization that was founded in 1984 initially as a program of Downtown Cooperative Ministries. We are now a nonprofit, independent 501c3, started in 2003. We emerged as an independent, non-religious organization, but kept that interfaith name to honor that past. And we hold a number of programs, everything from what we call Diapers for Dignity, adult incontinence support, to Food Force, to Rides, and Rides Plus is a membership-based model for transportation to help our seniors get to and from the doctor. The Connecticut Garden Collaborative, May's Closet for durable medical equipment, helping keep things out of the landfill, not just to help elevate accessibility, right, to those durable medical items, but really to be more thoughtful about resources, right? So, we do a lot with pennies and nickels sometimes on the floor, we find, and we try to make the most of it. But I do think that IVCG in some ways represents a hopeful perspective that exists in the community around what we can do together. And so we invite people into community as volunteers in the way that they want to engage. Pick your program, pick your flavor, right? Very flexible. We say it's a volunteer-empowered model. And so we're not telling people, you have to do X, Y, and Z with certain frequency. No, this is really inviting people in to engage the way they want to be engaged. So over time, the goal, of course, is to encourage more care, more compassion, and relationship. And that goes back to something that Kathleen and I sometimes talk about, which is the spirit of community and really wellness begins with relationship, right? It's not about the transactions.
Absolutely. Yeah.
How many rides did we do this month? Okay, that's important for some report, but it's really not important in terms of actual impact, right? The impact happens between those moments. And so, as we do that work and we realize and we allow ourselves to acknowledge the fact that we live in real space, right? We don't live in a box. We don't live in a computer, although we spend more and more time, with technology. We live in real space. I think that is an invitation for us to imagine the impacts that we're having. Mm-hmm. And so the work that we're doing, right, somewhat independently, but also more and more together, I think is really uplifting and hopeful.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And so this iteration of our relationship involves my concern that Gray is Green needs to be housed somewhere where it has a future. And so we're in conversation about transitioning Gray is Green to IVCG so that there's a legacy of Gray is Green. Right now, our big things are our monthly newsletter and our really wonderful ebook that we put together that's very attractive. And we might come out with a second edition or something like that. But I'm concerned that I can't continue forever to be the holder of that.
Right. Yeah.
I have to set that aside and house it somewhere. So I'm in conversation with IVCG about that.
So let's talk a little bit more about Gray is Green and the details, because we describe it from your website as an online community, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So what exactly are you doing with Gray is Green, and how are people getting involved?
We have a monthly newsletter that comes out 10 times a year. We have an excellent Next Gen newsletter editor that I work closely with. And I spent a few years putting together the ebook.
Sorry, we're having some technical difficulties all of a sudden. Jason's over there playing with audio. Okay, we're good.
We have an ebook that when people see it is very interesting because I went way beyond the usual recycling and diet and transportation and LED bulbs, and I talked about faith traditions. And I took a 1.5 year workshop on the deep roots of the major world religions and faith traditions, and including indigenous traditions, which they do not consider to be religions. They just consider that to be the way you walk on the planet. And we put points about those in the ebook because older Americans are often affiliated with an organized religion and wanted to bring the awareness of that for them. So this current iteration where organized religions are often just concerned about their own longevity as institutions. We were blessed with a pope recently who got beyond that. But we included that in our ebook, and that's become very attractive to people who have looked at the ebook. So we do the whole thing about community engagement, household practices, understanding the deep roots of your faith tradition, and more that I can't even remember right now.
Well, I mean, that sounds fantastic. Is it something where people go and subscribe to this?
If they join the Gray is Green newsletter list, they get a free link to the ebook.
Okay.
We never spent a lot of time figuring out how to monetize it. We just wanted the information to go out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's important.
So I want to house that somewhere where it will have its own life.
So are the people involved with the organization, are they volunteers or are there people, do you have a staff? How does it work?
It's me and my contract editor.
Okay. All right.
And we have a legacy endowment from the founder.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's excellent.
Yeah. That we're spending down very slowly.
You know, I think a lot about metaphors and the garden as a teacher, as an educator, actually. I think in community with us. And the idea of passing on the stewardship of land, right, and how we work with the land, the relationship we have with the land, I think teaches us a lot. And so, the willingness to, well, first of all, I think the care, the love of something, right, the passion you have to help others be empowered, to have information, right, and to find agency in the work that they do in community and their ability to contribute as older Americans. It's not only well aligned with IVCG, right, but it's actually fundamental to the continuance of our journey, right, as a collective. And so each one of us aren't, exactly sure, right? Kind of we don't know what tomorrow will bring, but I think if we continue to hold hope that our collective journey continues, what is our role in that, and how do we steward other, voices and hands in that work? And so I would say, for me, just like a garden, we do need to help bring people into that experience, work with them side by side, and maybe step back at a time and allow them to hold that. And so even the possibility of doing this work in more actively, I think is uplifting for IVCG, and hopefully the community. We're interested in discussing and exploring that. So we would invite folks to reach out to us about that.
Yeah.
And on that point, I talked a lot about the ebook. The monthly newsletter is sort of the contemporary, ongoing referencing to what's current and what might be alive in people's minds and hearts. So that includes a lot about climate damage updates. It also speaks to grandparenting and how to connect with your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, because we're speaking with older adults.
Yeah.
And just things that are part of the experience of being an older adult in this culture, which two things, doesn't always recognize the value of older adults, and older adults taking a longer view, want to be focused in ways that are meaningful.
Yeah.
And so we try to help with that.
Yeah, purpose is important.
Yes,
for,
it is.
For longevity especially.
Yes, it is.
No one wants to just kind of coast. They want to stay engaged.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
On that point, let me share, and this is maybe tangential, but it is very much about purpose. And the one program I didn't yet mention at IVCG is Experience Corps of Greater New Haven. And so, we recently adopted that program. It's lived now in community here in Greater New Haven for over 18 years, 30 years nationally. There are 18 programs across the country. There's only one in the state of Connecticut. But to bring that program into IVCG felt right to us because of the fact that, what we're doing is we're inviting older Americans 50 years and over to come in as volunteer tutors and to help our youth K through third to learn to read. And in fact, not only are they doing these structured sessions twice a week, half-hour sessions, following best practices, but once in a while we also get to do some workshops. We recently did a workshop at Fame, and some of the members of the Garden Collaborative came out. We had some art activity, right? It was a lot of fun, and I think that purpose, it's what I call the duality of care, right? It's not just about us, how do we serve the kids, right? Which is important, obviously. Like, we have kids, but also, how do we allow our elders to benefit from that experience, right? How do we serve them, and how do they come back into community, right, in service, even though they are redeployed, right? They can be redeployed in maybe subtle, organic ways, as well as maybe more intentional ways, like Kathleen has done.
I think that's important. I've heard you talk about the duality of care before, and I think that's something that really resonates. For a person to benefit from an organization, to then be able to benefit that organization, it's so powerful, and I think really meaningful. It just, there's so much opportunity there, I think.
Yes, that's a beautiful theme, that there's a real reciprocity in the space that's created between people. So that this becomes a learning community rather than a teaching thing. It's very reciprocal and deep, and it's lovely and wonderful.
Yeah, I think that's what excites me most about the work that IVCG does. And now to hear what you're doing also with Gray is Green, it just seems like there's so much synergy between all of the things that are going on. Yeah, which is wonderful.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. And I think also providing a way for people to get engaged, because it's nice to talk about all of these concepts and talk about community, but there's something really meaningful to taking action. And I think that's the next step.
Well, I think people, quite frankly, especially in this moment, it seems to me like there are many people, many neighbors who desire change or desire action. They might feel frustration. And I think to retreat, right? To retreat and live on your cell phone or in social media and just kind of be in an echo chamber is so unhealthy, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Instead, maybe come out of that bunker to engage in community and to say, okay, you can actually take action tomorrow, right? You can help an older neighbor get to a doctor appointment and have that experience, and feel the trust that they're giving you, right, in community, which is really, I think, uplifting and can be very inspirational. So
and there are days when I need to be that person who asks for help to help co-create that community spirit, action, and reality and truth of who we are. We are all vulnerable in various ways at all ages of our life.
That's very true. Yeah. Yeah. And every stage is a new perspective, right?
Yes.
I think that's something that we can, benefit those of us that are in the adulting phase with kids in school, right? As we open up the possibility of being vulnerable, right? We see others in our community who are willing to do that with courage, maybe gives us the grace to be able to do that as well. And that's a great gift.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Look at that. Grace, vulnerability. What a lovely conversation to be in.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, and I think for people that are listening out there, I think there are so many ways to get involved in your community. And IVCG is one of these paths that offers so many different options for somebody to kind of raise their hand saying, I want to get involved, and then have a menu of opportunities to see what really aligns with you and what what your goals are, regardless of age. I mean, if you are in the elder American category, what's your encore? Like, let's figure that out, right?
Love that.
Yeah, so I think that's really exciting, and I love talking about having opportunities for people to get engaged and make a difference.
And I love that you welcome this and create this opportunity for people to hear about it and learn about it.
Thank you. Yeah, this is really my favorite part of the week, every single week. So I love what I do with the agency and with helping people with their health insurance and Medicare. But this just adds a whole nother layer to it. So thank you.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dave.
So what is next for both of you, for both organizations? Can you give us a hint of kind of where things are heading, or how do you want people to get involved or find you?
Well, I really want to proceed with this this underlying, I'll call it the business part of Gray is Green. I'm really concerned that it have a place to live beyond my time with it. So that's very, very important to me.
Yeah, I will say in terms of IVCG, what's next is largely dependent on what the community embraces and wants. We are a small organization in terms of the dollars, but we're very large in terms of the human capital, right? The human value. So I think the hardest thing that we struggle, the thing that we struggle with most, let me say this, is that folks often express or hold desire to take action, but they're not necessarily clear on their empowerment or their agency to do so. And so we struggle with trying to find the relationship and help people find comfort in their own space within the context of our work. And I know that might sound a little bit kind of broad, but it's really as simple as, the one by one, right? Talked to a volunteer just 2 days ago about the idea of having captains, right, within the area of Food Force to say, okay, we can do this work. We are struggling, right, because we're resource constrained. But if we look at resources differently, right, and we empower team captains, all of a sudden it becomes scalable, right? And the possibilities are very encouraging. So what's next? I think it's really cultivating that sense of and the opportunity, right, for people to take action. And so we do need people to reach out with some persistence, right? And reach out and say, hey, I'm clearly interested in this today. That might change 6 months from now as I learn more. That's okay. But let me share my passion. And so, we're excited about that. And I will say that, the possibility of Gray is Green working together, I think could be a big part of our future.
That's great. And so if people are hearing this now and they want to reach out, and where do they go? How do they get started?
Well, I would say, and we can actually address this very soon. Yeah. And that is, I'm thinking about connecting or referencing, helping people find Gray is Green through our webpage, but carenewhaven.org. It's a very easy webpage to remember, carenewhaven.org. And that has been, from an IVCG perspective, a good gateway into the work that we do. And so, start there. There's contact information. Reach out to me. And if you're specifically interested in learning more about Gray is Green, you can't find it, I'll connect you. We'll work on it.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And if the avenue for you is through grayisgreen.org, you sign up at the website for the newsletter, and you will get a link to the ebook. And there's another thing you can do.
Excellent. I love giving people some action steps. Yeah. And we'll be sure to link to all of this in the description of this episode, and make sure that we drive people to you, and so that they know where to go. I want to thank you both for being here. If you've been on the podcast, you know what's coming. Kathleen, you don't. But every episode, we kind of end with asking our guests to share one tip, one health hack that they have in their life that may help our listeners to be healthier. And it could be something that impacts you physically, emotionally, financially, but just kind of one health hack that you can share with our listeners today.
Walk outdoors and let yourself contemplate the vitality and the beauty of your longevity as you walk, and breathe with the trees whenever you can.
Does it matter how long?
No, 10 minutes, an hour, whatever you can do.
Fantastic. Dan, you got another one?
In the spirit of that and an earlier thought, I want to honor my mother and her tradition every New Year's Eve. She has always gone outside. New Year's Eve as the strike, it goes to midnight, and she says a little prayer to herself under the stars. And I think that idea, just going outside, whatever makes sense to you, take 5 minutes every day, start there, really simple. Go outside. If you're mobility limited, you can still just be outside.
Yeah.
Somewhere for just a few minutes a day. If it's raining, let that rain fall on you for a minute, right? That's okay.
Oh, yes.
And see where it goes. 6 months from now, just see how you're feeling about that. And if you're wanting to spend more than 5 minutes, tell us about it. We'd love to hear.
We have lots of opportunities to be outside.
Yeah.
All right. Fantastic. I love both of those. And I think they're really important for people to incorporate into their daily lives. So thank you both for that. And I want to thank you also for your time today. This has been such a great conversation. And I hope it's the second and first of many to come, and that we continue to keep building these communities that are really so important. So thank you for the work you're both doing.
Thank you, Dave.
And thank you, Dave.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, that's a wrap on another episode of Sounds of Health. I want to thank all of you out there who are listening, watching live on Facebook, catching us on YouTube or any of the podcast apps. I am your host, Dave MacNiven, and we are produced by Jason Carubia with music by Rob Hames. And really, every week, we bring you stories that inspire, empower, and help you to upgrade your life and health. If you enjoy the show, the way you can pay us back is just by liking, sharing, subscribing, and please leave us a review. We really love hearing from our listeners. If you know someone who wants to be a guest on the show, please reach out. We are continuing to look for guests, and we hope that you all continue to listen, share the sounds of health, and continue to be a part of our wellness community. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time.